How are you?
I have one very similar. I should have worn that. We could have been
What?
jacket.
Oh, do you? Good. It's like instant dress up, you know? How are you? Thank you, sir. That's all right. Got it. I just hurry and I ran out of the house without got the packet.
She stepped
Bring
up.
her.
Cheryl?
Yeah, Cheryl's here.
Deliver cookies.
There she is.
Yeah. Assuming I got the clock changed at the right time today, which it looks like I'm on.
What time does that say? Say 5:20.
Oh, the
Looks
hand
like
fell down?
6:30. Oh, but stay.
Thing
Oh,
is, like-
it's been moving.
The hand comes back up. Probably time to pay attention to plot.
Compensate me
So
That's wireless, that changes itself.
to, I would say, day a month or year. Somebody else. It's just ridiculous.
we get frugal. Yeah, frugal. It's not bad. Yeah.
That's what the. Well,
Everybody all set? Yep. Call to order the budget workshop number 1, fiscal year 2024-2025. Roll call, please.
Garner.
Here.
O'Brien.
Present.
Balmas. Thorstensen.
here.
Woodside. Ross.
Here.
5 present, 1 absent.
All right, I'll throw it to Pat to
Sure. So similar to previous years, we'll start out with Brian. He'll do a high-level budget overview, review the funding sources, then we'll get into each of the major 5 operating departments. We have representatives down here that'll cover those budgets, and then wrap up with the different funds, review capital again quick, which hasn't changed too much from what we presented back in January. We'll go till about 6:40-ish, then we got pizza coming, stop and eat, have the regular board meeting, and then pick back up where we left off when we get to the end of new business, the regular board meeting. So get going here, Brian.
All right, thank you, Pat. As you know, we had some new budget software this year that we're implementing. The idea really is to have a better online experience. So as we go through the presentation, I'll have screenshots of kind of where that navigation is on the new website. First menu starts out the mayor's budget message. This is highest level overview. This is really the mayor to the citizens of Gurnee. And some of the main points are budget was prepared without a property tax again. Reserves are healthy. 3.7 million in outstanding debt, the lowest of any community in Illinois, over 25,000. So obviously that's something that we could tout. Lowest cost of water among Jowl, with the exception of Volo, who offsets their cost of water with property tax. If you include that in, then we are the lowest. Included in the budget is still some discounts for seniors, water and building permits, and of course we received the latest GFOA award. Will apply again for this budget cycle. Next drop-down menu is the introduction menu, and the first page is the transmittal letter. This comes from the administrator to the village board, goes a little deeper into the numbers, just some of the main points. Total revenues across all village funds, 99.27 million, expenditures 101.04 million. General fund balance with expenditures of 51.6 million. Fund balance in the general fund is 31.9, which comes out to 74.7% of expenditures. If you remember, we changed our fund balance policy to stay in that range of 60 to 65, so we know at the end of this year, at least, the way things are trending right now, we'll have some excess that we can utilize for capital. Budget includes the addition of 6.6 FTEs. We'll go over that. Capital plan, as Pat said, changed very little, just a little increase to the road program. Also included in the year ends is a $3 million transfer from the general fund to the capital fund, $1.5 million to the capital fund, and $1.5 million to the water and sewer capital fund. Keep both those infrastructure programs going. Transmittal letter also talks about some of the challenges we face. Obviously, inflation has been a big one over the last few years. Lead times for vehicles, we've talked about that multiple times. Inflation also has an impact on personnel costs. And then we also have some incentive agreements that were included in here we'll get to when we talk about the Economic Development Fund. Obviously, to keep the sales tax base here and growing. Just one thing I wanted to touch on again under the introduction menu is a page called Fund Structure. In this section, I just want to point out one thing. We did add this year Fund 125, the Economic Development Fund. The purpose of this fund is really to isolate that rebate economic development activity out of the general fund into its own fund. Also, the hopes that over time it'll build a reserve that's sufficient in case an opportunity came up that we needed some funding for. We could look to this fund before we go to the general fund. A little further into the numbers here, this is the budget overview menu. The first page is executive overview. So this chart, the first chart you come to, shows proposed revenues and expenditures and any net surplus or deficit by fund. Just a couple things to note here. Net use of fund balance, 1.8 million. If you go down that far right column, you'll see the first negative is in the impact fee fund. Impact fee fund is something that built up over time as the community grew and development happened. It is now to the point we've used it over the last at least 10 years to offset some of the capital program. We've got to the point now where we'll use all of it in that fund, and that fund will close next year. A little further down, you see PD restricted revenue fund at $37.5 million deficit, or $37.5 thousand deficit. That is just spending prior year seized funds for capital. A little further down, capital improvement fund, 4.3 million. Again, that's prior year surpluses and budget surpluses being spent. Same thing with water and sewer. A little further down, you see a $2 million negative. Transferred $2 million last year, transferred $1.5 million again this year. So we're using that for the infrastructure program. A little further down, you'll see the fleet services fund, negative 283,000. Here, we're just using some of the fund balance to offset the general fund for, again, prior year surpluses or things that didn't happen from a vehicle purchase standpoint. And then finally, at the very bottom, you'll see the NLCC ETSB fund. This is our joint ETSB fund with the City of Zion, spending that down 2.1 million. Got some capital purchases that are coming up also included in there. And we'll talk a little bit more about this as a potential loan to the new joint Lakecom communications building and setup. A little further down in the executive overview section, or executive overview page, is this chart. This chart shows fund balance at the end of next year, projected fund balance at the end of next year. Just want to hit a couple high points. General fund, we talked about 31.9 million, almost 75%. You look at the capital improvement fund at 4.2 million. That's 78.5% of home rule sales tax. Again, we don't have a policy for these funds as far as the fund balance goes. But what we target here is about half of that home rule sales tax, which is about $2.5 million. So we're ahead of that. Water and sewer fund, 4.3 million at 41.9%. 35% is kind of the magic number for that. So we're still above that in the water and sewer fund. The health insurance fund is negative. This is a fund new a couple years ago. We'll work to get that back above zero over time here. That fund, as an internal service fund, balances off the general fund, so it can't ever really be negative because it just combines with the general fund. Fleet services, $1.3 million. Again, that's accumulated over time. We're drawing that down a little bit. And then the joint ETSB fund is drawn down to about $207,000. We know that's already $150,000. It'll be to the good once we get to the changes that we need to make for the final. A little further down under that budget overview tab is personnel changes. So under that tab, you'll see this page, this chart on that page. Shows proposed budgeted, unbudgeted, and total authorized versus last year. We'll get into each of these changes as we go through the different departments, but overall budgeted FTEs, 245.4, unbudgeted 13, for a total authorized FTEs of 258.4. Almost a little over 71% of total personnel is dedicated to public safety, 15.58 public works, roughly 6.8 administration, and just over 6.3 to community development. Again, we'll detail these changes as we walk through the departments. The next menu that you see on the web version is funding sources. So this really goes in depth into every category and a funding source that we have, talks about what's included. I'll try to stay fairly high level. We'll talk more about it as we get through the different funds. Year-end estimate, 98.05 million is where we project to end. This is again across all funds at 6 million or 6.5% over budget. Total budget for next year, 99.27, increase to 7.2 or 7.87%. Just a scope of where the money comes into. The general fund receives obviously the majority, 51.9%. Pension funds, 15.4. 10.4 in the water and sewer operating and capital funds. The capital fund brings in 5.8% of all revenue. The two internal service funds, so this is health insurance and fleet services, 8.8. A bunch of different special revenue funds, as you can see listed there, bringing about 6.5% of all revenue, and then a small portion for the joint ETSB and the golf course fund. The next chart on that all funds summary page, or all sources summary page, is this chart here. Shows revenues by type across all funds. Just walking through the categories real quick. Major revenues, that's sales, amusement, food and beverage, and hotel taxes. 34.7% of all revenues across all funds, so obviously significant revenue sources there. Charges for service, 20.5%. Investments and contributions up this year, obviously with rising interest rates, 17.3%. Other sources, this is where we see the revenue side of interfund transfers, 11.4%. Intergovernmental, 11.1%. And then taxes, fines, and forfeitures, and licenses and permits, all 2%, right at 2% and under. The next menu down is major revenues. This really goes into each major revenue source, 10-year history, talks about how it's applicable, what it's applicable to. So there's really some good information in there on each major revenue source. In total, across all funds, year-end estimate of 34.92. That's up 1.2 million or 3.6% over budget. Proposed budget for next year brought that down a little bit, 34.4 million, up 730 or 2.16 versus last year's budget. So we're trying to be conservative next year based on where we're going to end this year. The sales tax piece projected to end 480,000 or almost 2% over budget. Next year's budget 130,000 or about 0.5%. Amusement tax projected to end 250,000 or 6.7 over budget. Again, brought that down slightly. Next year's budget 200,000 or 5.7. Food and beverage 325,000 or 11.9% projected to end this year. Next year brought that down slightly, 250,000 or 10.4%. And then hotel tax we left at 2.4 million. So, or 150,000 or 6.7 over this year's budget. So brought that forward. So again, try to be conservative where we thought it made sense in each one of those major revenue sources. The next menu piece is all funds summary menu. Under here you'll find the information related to expenditures. Obviously these expenditure by category, largest one is salary and wages, 37.4 if you combine it with employee benefits. Again, this is across all funds. It's 52% of the total budget. This is where you see wages and overtime, pensions, health insurance, things like that. Other financing uses, 16.4%. This is the expenditure side of fund transfers and rebates. Employee benefits we talked about. Contractual services, 11.9%. There's the road resurfacing and the CLC Jawa. Capital, 11.3%. We'll talk about that when we get to the capital plan. Supplies, 2.5% of all expenditures. This is fuel, parts, ice control, salt, included in there. And then the other categories are 2% or less. Still under fund summaries, looking specifically at the general fund now. FY '24, so just general fund here, projected to end the year at $2.67 million or 5.4% over budget. Again, these are revenues. We talked about major revenues across all funds. This is just the general fund, $1.2 million or 4.2% over budget. Intergovernmental, $623,000 or 9.6%. I should go back to major revenues. Sales tax, some breaking news. In the last few days, we got holiday shopping, and it was up almost 5% over last year, so positive news. Intergovernmental, up $623,000, 9.6%. That's income use tax. And then investments and contributions, obviously, finished the year up 63.6% versus budget. It's rising interest rates. So taking that, looking at next year, up almost $2.5 million or 5%. Again, major revenues up 2.8%. Intergovernmental, that income and use tax, we use the IML estimate, dial it back just a little bit to be conservative, up 7.1%. Charges for service, included in this category is school resource officer, off-duty PD, contracts for fire services, ambulance, things like that, up $435,000 or 5%. Fines and forfeitures just slightly up due to the red light. Some red light intersections coming back online. And then investments and contributions, obviously carrying that forward as interest rates appear like they're going to stay steady for a little while. Staying in the general fund on the expenditure side, looks like we'll finish the year 1.4 million or 2.8% over budget. That sounds bad, but that includes $3 million transfer to the capital funds we talked about earlier. So it's not really over budget. It's just due to that capital transfer. Really $1.5 million under, but. Salaries and wages and employee benefits, these are under. Again, this is a significant source based on how we budget conservatively, significant source of surplus typically at the end of the year. Almost $1 million or a little over $1 million between the two of those. Professional and technical services, $361,000 under budget. That was primarily the red light fees that we pay to the company. And then other uses here is $3 million over budget, and that's where you see that $3 million transfer to the capital funds. That's this year. Next year, 24-25 budget, up almost $2.5 million or 5%. Obviously, salaries and wages with inflation, $1.62 million, 6.1%. That obviously has an impact on COLAs. That professional and technical line is down $138,000 or 11.1%. Again, that's the red light fees. Contractual up $304,000. We had talked about this in different meetings, but a lot of services moving to the cloud, a lot of software moving to the cloud. I'm sure Ryan will talk more about that. That boosts up this category here. And then other uses up $490,000 or 5.7. This is where we see the expenditure side of transfers and incentive deals that are coming online. With that, I'll be quiet for a little bit and let the departments talk.
Yep, so we'll transition to the departments now. So first up, administration, total authorized 17.4. You can see the breakdown between budgeted and unbudgeted. We've got one unbudgeted position that we carry, which was a IS technician position in the budget, in case that's needed at some point throughout the year. As far as personnel changes, I'll start at the bottom there at the GIS coordinator transition into the GIS administrator. So this position has been in place for over 20 years. Obviously, when we created the GIS coordinator position way back when, the duties and the responsibilities have changed over time. As you know, we're in the process of having a wage and benefits review by an outside firm for non-bargain personnel conducted right now. Part of that is looking at job descriptions, seeing if they're up to date. This was one of the positions that jumped down to us as far as needing to be updated. So what staff is proposing is renaming the title for the GIS coordinator to administrator, then adjustment in the salary schedule. So right now we've got one person that handles all the GIS for the village. Obviously, every single department relies on that on a daily basis. Police, fire, public works, administration, really integral position within our operation. So making sure that that's placed correctly in the market is important as far as retention and attraction. Related to that now, back up to the top, the addition of a GIS specialist, so that's really to support this person, provide backup to this person. We see this specialist as more as someone that's out in the field verifying the location of different assets. The administrator gets stuck in the office dealing with the database a lot. So having somebody that can get out in the field, work with engineering, work with public works to feed that back into the office and get that information updated, we think will be a benefit. The position will be split with water and sewer, so you got 0.75 do the information systems division, and then the other quarter to water and sewer. And then the community engagement coordinator. So you'll remember we had a management analyst position in the community development department. That's really reimagining that position. So you'll see it's up one in admin, but it's down one in David's department. So it's really a wash. This person will be working directly with Ellen, resident outreach, business outreach, really being another liaison to the community, assisting with special events planning, Gurney Days, farmers markets, the events that we partner with Bittersweet, taking on a lot of that work to free Ellen up. Ellen obviously should be focusing on the economic development, not the event planning stuff. So had a really good turnout for the recruitment for this, and should be hopefully have somebody on board here in the next couple months. So as far as some accomplishments and what we got going on next year, so this year's budget is not up there, but we're projected and on budget just $6,000 over, so basically flat. Obviously, the recruitments continue to take up a ton of time and be a main focus. Police, fire, now public works is coming on board as far as employees starting to retire. So Christine and Erica Wells have been working on that. We've also had some one-off recruitments this past year with the village planner, network administrator, the community engagement coordinator that they're still in the process of wrapping up right now. So again, that's been a huge focus, making sure that we've got people in place to take over when these others retire and continue operations. Compensation study that I mentioned, so this is about 45 non-bargain positions. Again, making sure compared to our comparable communities, the salary is where it needs to be to keep us attractive. So hopefully have some information in front of the village board in the next couple of months. We've made some assumptions in the budget related to these positions. Hopefully will be covered. Again, we'll see what the consultant comes back with, and then it'll be in front of the village board. Consultant will have a report, staff review, make a recommendation for the village board's consideration. Brian's talked about the budget software, so I won't go on about that. He's also mentioned the senior water rate discount, so looking to carry that forward into next year's budget to help our seniors out. So they'll be paying per gallon what we pay for Java for the first 5,000 gallons. So that program has been nice. And then dispatch consolidation. So both chiefs, Supervisor Jones, myself, Director Gosnell have spent a ton of time working on this with the county and the other partner agencies. Hopefully we'll have some documents for the village board to consider, basically a package deal, the intergovernmental agreement, some bylaws, how the cost sharing would work, et cetera, here in the next couple months. Everything stays on track. They're looking to have partner agencies that are interested in joining and continuing to move forward with the new center, approve those in June. So hoping to have something here shortly for discussion and review. Coming up next year, I mentioned the community engagement coordinator. The dispatch consolidation continues. The village hall HVAC, you're all aware of, so they'll be tearing into that this fall. So that'll be an interesting project. Another thing I just wanted to cover quick is just, well, let's see, what do we got in the next slide? What's up next? Okay. So that's info. Okay. Is just, you know, when we go through these budget hearings, it's, you know, this is going up, that's going up, just to go over some of the efforts we make as far as cost reduction, applying for grants, et cetera. And we probably don't do a good enough job sharing this information with the village board and the public. So I just wanted to share some general information here. So since 2020, we've received over $800,000 in grant funding. We have applied for and not received $3.2 million in funding over the same time. We've got about $3.7 million in funding requests hanging out there right now that we're waiting to hear back from. So decently aggressive as far as applying for grants that make sense for us. As far as cost reduction and efficiencies, and a lot of these the village board is probably aware of, but I don't think it hurts to have a little refresher. So hiring contract engineers during the construction season versus bringing people on full-time all year long. The Orion meter reader change out and changing out the water meters as far as making sure we get more reliable information quicker so we can address any concerns with the utility system. The hook lift trucks that Public Works use, having one vehicle that can serve many different purposes based on switching out the skids on the back. Police Department hands down vehicles to the Community Development Department, as David gives me kind of a half grin, so.
I don't think that was a grin.
No, yeah, a scowl. But it's worked out, get some more useful life out of those vehicles. So passing that down. The Finance Department with just moving a lot of stuff to electronic billing, auto pay, electronic funds transfer to pay our bills, transition employees to paperless wherever we can. Fire Department, as you know, they work on a lot of their equipment in-house, so that obviously saves time and money, gets equipment back on the road quicker. Have linked up the software when a GovQA request is made and it's related to Public Works, that automatically flows into Public Works workflow software, and moving some community development permits online and being able to pay for those online, and then just participating in the dispatch consolidation project, even up until this point, as far as getting on a shared software, the county purchasing that, us not having to pay the full boatload, are just some areas where we've worked to reduce expenses and create some efficiencies. So, right, when the public looks at this, I don't want them to think we're not out there looking for grant funding or looking for ways to save money or do things a little more efficient. So just want to throw those out there. The departments do a good job on it, and I think going forward in the future, we just need to bring it more to the limelight, so we'll work on that. So.
All right, so in IS, starting with a review of fiscal year '24, we added, Brian mentioned it, we added a staff member to the IT division. Josh Lopez joined us as network administrator after 8 years in the Marine Corps with a similar job title. Josh holds a well-regarded certification, the CISSP, or Certified Information Systems Security Professional certification. It's a challenging and sought-after cert, and we're happy to have Josh on board. Pat mentioned the Lake County Joint CAD and RMS rollout. Well, that system is not quite ready yet. It's tentatively scheduled to go live in April. I just want to say there's been an enormous effort across our departments. The amount of staff time that's gone into working with the county on that system, setting it up for our use. I have to call out Gurney Police Sergeant Michael Mann. He works in the IS department part-time, so he's split some of the work on this CAD and RMS rollout between police and IS, but he's participated nearly tirelessly in the working groups, has an in-depth understanding of the project as a whole, and has shaped application and technical components within the project. So we're happy to have his attention on that project. But otherwise, we've made improvements in our cybersecurity posture over the year, in part through monthly meetings with Arctic Wolf, our managed security services partner. Arctic Wolf reviews industry trends, monitors our system, looks at alerts and data from our network, performs analysis, and brings us items for review. The program with Arctic Wolf continues to be valuable for our network security across the board. Also in 2024, end-user security awareness training became a requirement for state agencies and local governments. The program we have in place exceeds those state requirements, but above that continues to pay dividends in changing end-user behavior. The end users practicing good cybersecurity hygiene is our first line of defense against phishing and malware attacks. Directly tying with end-user activity, our password management application rollout continued to gain users this year. Bitwarden gives our staff the tools to address reuse of passwords, sufficient password length and complexity, and some internal sharing where required. Patching maintenance items across our IT landscape has been an upward trend for the last few years now. But this year was just an explosion of critical security issues where patching was required in short periods of time, often bringing new or changed functionality that required staff time to test, document, and mitigate before these patches were ready for the environment as a whole. But not just reactionary patching, we had successful software projects. New versions of Tyler ERP were deployed into new server environments. Virtualization infrastructure was updated to current, and we're close to deploying a new version of Adobe Acrobat with cloud document syncing, kind of a first for our environment. Moving on to 2025, this is going to be an exciting year. Director Velkover has signaled he'll be retiring before we work on budgets for fiscal year 26. His retirement will definitely be a loss for our organization. I've worked with Chris for over 20 years now, and I couldn't ask for a better supervisor and mentor, boundless dedication to the organization, skill set that reaches beyond what you typically see in IT. He's still behind me, right? No.
Did he write this for you? Or?
He did not.
Brian's review's coming up.
But faced with his well-deserved retirement, we're looking to keep the division headcount flat by backfilling a position. Pat already mentioned in our GIS section that we're looking to kind of move what traditionally has been a part-time intern position to a full-time GIS specialist. But this all means that there'll be a fair amount of new staff all in less than a year's period. So one of my focuses will be really just building skill across our work group. Hands-on, get the new folks out there working, and doing third-party training we're required to fill these knowledge gaps. It's going to be an important part of where we go after losing the veteran IT staff. But before I go on from that, I just have to say I don't get to sit up here and talk about the things we do or the things we're looking toward without the support of our whole work group. System Administrator Jeff Dishno has been with us for about 2.5 years now, and has become more than a positive contributor. John Frederick, our technician that deals with the day-to-day grind. Eric Venden, who we've discussed on the GIS side, has administered a local government leading GIS program. And our part-time staff members, Brad Lambert, Mike Mann, both bringing operational knowledge to support our technology needs across the board, not just from their respective departments. But these folks are what makes up your IS department. Aside from new skills, we're going to continue with our security efforts. We're formally adopting CIS controls as a set of benchmarks and standards for policy and system configuration. This ties to an item in the strategic plan, well-maintained infrastructure, standards, and mandates section. Also ties into suggestions from Arctic Wolf. To help address this explosion in patching, we're looking at patch management systems to not only automate patching, but to report for where things are not being covered. This speaks to something that's directly in our cybersecurity insurance renewal questionnaire. Arctic Wolf brought us stretch goals for our Active Directory system. Well, this isn't really a budget cost item, this is staff time, but these reflect new guidance and tie to CIS controls. Bitwarden password management will be rolled out to all the users that work out of this building and the police department as a whole, and the goal there is to turn off browser password saving and cloud syncing of those credentials to enhance our security across the board. Windows client replacement will continue an effort to be ready for Windows 10 end of life in 2025. This is one we were a little bit behind the curve coming out of COVID just due to supply chain issues, and we're catching up. This next fiscal year, 25, is looking pretty good. On the application side, for next year, we have the email security and anti-malware system replacement. This is going to be Mimecast, and that's slotted to kick off early in the fiscal year. This will be the first step in moving away from GroupWise as our email system. Later in fiscal year 25, we'll start the Microsoft 365 Outlook project, and the go-live will probably spill into fiscal year 26. This area, though, is primarily the area responsible for what is about 6.5% budget increase on ours, and Brian mentioned the 16% increase across the board. Software purchases have moved almost entirely away from the old purchase maintenance model to an annual subscription. So the yearly cost is more than what maintenance used to be, except for that cost kind of goes on forever. This increase, ours is 6.6%, but it's pretty much the same sort of per user percent across the different cloud services lines. But moving away from software, network switching and routing implementation is going to continue throughout the year. Much of our core networking equipment has been in service for 7 to 10 years. It's reaching end of life in the next few fiscal years. Replacements are scheduled for fiscal year 25 and then planning ongoing after that. But these are just sort of the bullet points here. Happy to answer any questions.
Can you do me a favor and just explain what Josh does again? Sounded cool.
Historically, I was the network administrator for many years, and I wore kind of the infrastructure network hat and the software systems hat. And as IT has grown, it became pretty clear that I can't be good at both of those things. And so we broke those apart. They're kind of two sides of the same coin. System Administrator Dishno works on primarily software implementation components, and Josh, as the network administrator, is working on networking infrastructure, VPNs, authentication, Wi-Fi's, those items.
Stuff that's going to matter since we're going to go all cloud pretty soon, right?
We still need to get to the cloud somehow.
Right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody to my left? Oh, thank you, Ryan. Good job. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, so for the Public Information Division for fiscal year 23-24, we accomplished a lot in terms of communication. We managed approximately 14 communication outlets, including the newsletter, the weekly e-news, the website, multiple Facebook pages, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and more. This work translated to approximately 113% an increase in social media output year over year. We executed 12 monthly communication plans. We began utilizing optimal post and send times based on recommended algorithms. We expanded the special features as a means of informing and educating the public. These special features you've seen in the keeping posted, as well as online and when printed out into basic flyers and handouts. In terms of some other communication / marketing items we have taken care of this year was the professional photography we got of the village. We had a drone photographer come out and take pictures of all our nice little places in Gurnee. And then we implemented digital signage here at Village Hall. So that was for fiscal year 23-24. And for fiscal year 24-25, it seems like we got a lot going on, a lot of things to do. We recently signed the contract with the ETC Institute to conduct the resident survey and the business survey for the community. Once we get these on track, we're expected to begin this summer and fall, and then try to do it on a biannual basis to basically benchmark our results against ourselves in the future, as well as other communities that the ETC Institute holds data for. To assist with this data-driven communication program that was mentioned in the strategic plan, we will be expanding the use of our social media management software, so we have another subscription in the budget for that. This helps in terms of publishing and managing content, and we'll have that on board for the new community engagement coordinator. Also, in part of the data-driven communications program, we analyzed the website data, and we got a good report from the company that manages our website. And in short, what we found was that the website in the past has served as a information hub, and over time, with the service request system and other things taking shape, it's transformed more to a kind of a processing hub, transaction portal for residents. So we're looking at in fiscal year 25-26, but for next year to start identifying a more functional solution for our website that will bring in new features into the future and really take us there. I guess this falls in line also because our website maintenance costs have increased significantly, and we'll be having a basically more of a back-end upgrade. You'll see probably some things different on the front end, but to our website. So these, it's getting a little phased out at this point, but we're going to have our solution in next year and have a budget number for that, and then begin implementation in that following year. And that's really it for the public information section. If you guys have any questions, just feel free to ask.
Yes, trustee Thorstensen?
I just want to commend Austin for doing an outstanding job as staff liaison for the Environmental Sustainability Committee. I'm not sure how many hours he has to put in besides receiving my emails or
Yeah.
replying to others' emails, meeting with Swalco, as well as actually facilitating the meetings for us monthly, but just an outstanding job.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Austin. I appreciate it.
The next kind of department here in the general fund is really kind of a mishmash of stuff that doesn't really fit anywhere else. We have this department called, or division called the village-wide obligations. This is where we handle rebate incentive agreements. Historically, that'll now be moved to the Economic Development Fund and fund transfers and things like that. So just a couple highlights. Fiscal year 23-24, we talked about already, but the $3 million excess transfer, $1.5 million to the capital fund and $1.5 million to the water and sewer fund. Again, bolster those infrastructure programs and some in a little bit in 26, or 25, but mostly 26. Next year, 24-25, included in here, again, this will be kind of split with the Economic Development Fund, but in the general fund will stay the village events, and we've added a couple more. I'm sure with the new community engagement coordinator coming on, they'll want to make their mark and have some ideas, so we added some additional funding for village events. And then on the Economic Development Fund side, the stuff that's moving over there, current incentive agreements and then a few anticipated incentive agreements that we think will come forward for review and approval here fairly soon.
Okay. Moving on to community development. Community development comprises two different divisions, two different budget funds, first of which is building safety. Building safety includes, or building and zoning includes both our building safety division as well as our zoning division, as well as code enforcement to support both of those. So results from this past year ended up under budget, primarily due to the loss of Jody Luca, our management analyst, partway through the fiscal year. So that's reflective in the dollar amount savings. Some of the activities that we've had this year, permit values for the current fiscal year are up 18% with 2 months remaining. So not even accounting for the last 2 months of revenues coming in for new construction value. So just, $83.5 million through 10 months. The permit quantity has been down this year. Part of that is material shortage, material costs, as well as higher interest rates. Some of the homeowner projects have been kind of put off. We're seeing some good activity so far this calendar year, though. So we're beating last year's numbers for permits issued in January, February, and the first part of March. So looking forward to another busy year. One of the other items that we implemented this last year was online permit payments for a limited selection of permit types. Some of the more routine permits that are available to be executed online, we opened up the portal for payments to come in on those. So basically everything from start to finish for the permit issuance can be done online rather than having to come into the office. Moving into next year, some of the things that we're looking to accomplish, the 2024 International Code Council suite of building codes. So we kind of skipped over the 21s. We had originally anticipated adopting the 21s, got busy, sidetracked with a couple other things. So we're jumping to the 24s. We're still waiting on a couple of them to be published, but we've started working our way through the books that we have received and are anticipating adopting those later this calendar year. The permit fee structure, we last did a comprehensive evaluation of all of our permit fees back in 2018 and 2019 for the residential and the commercial sides. So looking at those, I know we're also looking at a senior discount for building permits. So we're going to incorporate that in, as well as reevaluating the structure for all of our permit fees. And then finally, we're going to be looking at online scheduling for our building permits. As of right now, that's probably one of the biggest time drains on our clerical staff is scheduling the different permits, the phone calls, the people coming to the counter. So not that we don't want to see our residents or talk to our residents, but if we can make it a little bit more streamlined for them, you know, the asynchronous kind of scheduling process, so that, you know, we don't have to be talking face-to-face all the time, you know, help ease that process a little bit and make it a little more efficient on our end as well. Moving on to the engineering division. Similar to the building division, we are down in our budget this year due to the loss of our engineering technician partway through the fiscal year. That position has not been backfilled, having some trouble with filling that position. So that's one of the recommendations, one of the modifications that we're asking for is we're changing the engineering technician to another full-blown engineer. So that would create, you know, the village engineer plus 2 staff civil engineers on staff. So projects completed this year, you know, we completed the Granville and Waveland water main projects, as well as the Oplain water main project, including about a mile of replacement water main. Dan Salgado was our project manager on that and did a fantastic job. This year's road project was about 6.5 miles of resurfacing and reconstruction. So one of the biggest road projects the village of Gurnee has tackled in the history of Gurnee. That project was very effectively managed by Jake Benner, who is one of our staff engineers. And then looking to, so we also initiated some pedestrian improvements. We are working through the engineering process right now for pedestrian improvements at the intersection of Gages Lake and Route 21 to get the pedestrians from Heather Ridge across 21 to the Lake Carina facility on the east side of 21. And then also looking at the intersection of Oplain and Kingsway North. Some of our 2024-25 initiatives, anticipating an increase in 8% of the upcoming budget due to the replacement with a full-time engineer, which was previously the engineering technician. Water main projects, looking at about a half-mile water main replacement project along Illinois Route 21 to replace part of the old original cast iron system. As last year was not quite big enough at 6.5 miles, we're bumping it up again, so we're doing 6.7 miles of road resurfacing this year. Not as much rehab this year, but trying to stretch our dollars a little bit farther, and we are hitting that 20-year maintenance life cycle that we've been trying to hit for the last several years. And plus, we're catching up a little bit from some of the years that we didn't quite hit that. Some of the pedestrian improvements that we're planning for this year, the Dilly's Road pedestrian path going from the water tower to the north. Also looking to install some new sidewalk along Florida Avenue in the region of the school up there to help some of the traffic versus pedestrian conflicts in that area. Pedestrian facilities potentially at Oplain and Kingsway North, pending completion of permitting design with Lake County DOT. So with that, that is all I have. Be happy to entertain any questions if there are any.
All right, on to the left. Thank you, David and Nick.
All right, good evening. As far as the police department go, we encompass 2 divisions, administration and communications. I'll start with administration. As you'll see up there, a total of 116.75 total authorized. There will be some requests for increases this year. We will be asking to transition from a civilian support services director to a police commander, an administrative commander. We're also asking to add 3 police officers to our authorized strength. And then that half community service officer is maintaining a community service officer who's already trained, already outfitted and equipped, and transitioned to the Warren Township High School as their safety director this year. And so we'll be asking to keep him on over the summer to kind of help us out. As far as the budget goes, you'll see combined between police and communications, we're about 1.2 million under budget as far as the police department goes this year. With the increase of those positions that I mentioned, we will be looking at somewhere around a $1.1 million increase, or 6.4%. Results goes, I just want to take you back a few years. I think I may take us until the dinner break. I apologize ahead of time. But we've hired 38 police officers in 2 fiscal years. And with that hiring, 34 of those 38 are still with us today. And so I just want to thank the village and the support from all of the village staff that's needed for that, and the village for the budgeting support that allows for that to happen. We hired 12 this fiscal year, in the current fiscal year we're in. 4 of those are still at the academy. 4 of those are on their own right now, and 4 are still in training. And I just want to remind everybody that we've had 16 retirements in the last 2 fiscal years within the police department. So with that comes a lot of change. It comes a lot of opportunity. We have had that. We've promoted 6 police sergeants in the last 2 fiscal years, 2 commanders, 1 deputy chief. As far as last year's budget goes, we did add a position in the police department, and that was a public safety compliance officer. Just as a refresher, that was a needed role, really, to help deal with the unfunded mandates that continue to come from the state related to FOIA, body-worn camera, expungement, and other records review. So that position is up and running and doing well. As far as training goes, in the last 2 budget years, we've accomplished almost 11,000 hours of additional police training. And really, to kind of put that in perspective, that's not counting the police academy. That's not counting the yearly mandate training that's required for each police officer in the state of Illinois, which generally occurs on duty through an online portal. As far as that training goes, I just kind of want to break that down a little bit. We have a number of positions within the police department that are either a 40-hour minimum or an 80-hour minimum training. And out of that, we've added a number of officers to those specialties, instructor positions, a total of 83 in 2 budget years. And give you an example of what that looks like, that's 10 crisis intervention officers, 6 defensive tactics instructors, 14 evidence techs, 12 new field training officers, 12 new juvenile certified officers, 4 active response instructors, 3 rescue task force instructors, and 8 use of force instructors, just to kind of give you an idea of what that training accomplishment looks like. As far as career development goes, up there along training, again, really important. We've had a number of changes, a number of opportunities within our department. In fiscal year 23, we accomplished about 1,100 hours of leadership and management training. This current fiscal year to date, we're at 1,300 hours of training. And again, most of this is some sort of succession plan training, continuing education through Northwestern's police program or other online programs that we have offered. We did send all of our officers, or signed all of our officers, up for an online annual training program that is every month, was about 4 hours of their time on duty to continue their supervisor training. Next is wellness. We've gotten a lot of support from the village in the last 2 years on a wellness program. Just really want to bring you up to speed where we're at. Just a reminder that in fiscal year 22, we came and asked for support on a cortical wellness app. You provided that to us. We were the first police department in the state of Illinois to provide that wellness app to our employees. Again, that covers all of the police department employees, all their family members, all of our retirees, and all of their families. We continue to provide yearly training through the First Responder Wellness Center, where they send out a clinician, a doctor, to provide annual training on professional stressors and coping strategies for the entire police department. We did host a 4-hour wellness training course called Breach Point for all of our employees within the police department. That was broken up into multiple sessions. Every employee in the police department was required to attend. And then at the conclusion of that, we offered the same course, slightly different, same instructor. We offered it to our family members of our police officers. And that was hosted in conjunction with our department chaplain, Pastor Chris Stevens. As far as this last fiscal year, we've also rolled out our internal wellness program, where we host a chiropractor twice a month. The doctor comes to the police department and provides adjustments on duty to employees, and we also are offering twice monthly massage therapy to our employees on duty, and it's a certified massage therapist. It's a 30-minute visit. So we hope to continue to offer that and expand that program as we move into fiscal year 25. Last on our results from last year is Flock. I think most of you are somewhat familiar with the Flock cameras already. But we do have, currently we have 9 fixed village-owned cameras throughout the community. We have 1 portable camera. We have 4 additional cameras in the process. And I just, one metric I want to share with you to kind of bring you up to speed of what that's been like. Prior to the installation of the Flock cameras, and I realize this is reactive, but it's really the most telling statistic to offer at this point. We averaged about 14 recovered stolen autos a year in the last 5 calendar years within the police department. Post installation of those Flock cameras, last year we recovered 55 stolen autos, and currently to date this year, as of yesterday, we've recovered 47. One other completion from last year, again, it goes along retention and recruitment. I just want to mention that we did complete our contract negotiations with 2 of the 3 unions within the police department. And thank you for your support during those negotiations. We feel those are very important to recruitment and retention. As far as initiatives go for the next year, again, a lot of personnel changes and staffing. We did add a 5th SRO position. We hope to include that moving forward. We're moving very close or closer to building out our full patrol teams and adding additional supervisors and officers to our visitor-oriented policing team. Our first visitor-oriented policing detective will be reassigned to that division next week. And that was a division that we had to disband back in 2020 during the height of COVID due to some staffing challenges. And so it'll be nice to get that back up and running. And we do have plans for 2 teams of 5 detectives with a sergeant on each team. I've mentioned already the Director of Sports Services back to a sworn position. Filling the vacant public ed position that plays an important role in our community with our schools and building relationships. And then as we begin to build out the staff, really re-engaging public safety and retail safety, traffic safety throughout the community. With the staffing challenges that we faced, it was inevitable that we were going to be a little bit more reactive than historically we've been or what we're comfortable with. As we build the staff out and we have the officers on the road to be able to transition into a more proactive policing measure and response, we will do so. It starts obviously with the patrol teams and then the build out of the visitor-oriented policing team. We should see an increased visual presence of police officers in our retail corridor, in our neighborhoods and on the roads as we increase traffic safety details and take on a little bit more active traffic enforcement. And then last but not least is our wellness room. Again, this has been a multi-fiscal year project that we've had your support. We are requesting to build out the wellness room in the next budget year. And that really is a quiet and soothing space for employees to escape the noise, decompress, recharge, both physically and mentally throughout their workday. It will include a massage chair, soothing sounds, some healthy vitamin D enhanced lighting, and then perhaps most importantly, which is very difficult for our employees, is there will be no work allowed when they're in their recovery room. And so just to give you an example of what that's like, it's very normal for a police officer to go on their lunch or dinner and get called out because of an emergency. And so we'll have procedures in place for a critical incident, but other than that, when they check into the wellness room, they'll be out for 15 minutes to recover and spend some time there. As far as the police department goes, that is it as far as results and initiatives. And I'd like to move on to communications, if that's okay, before answering any questions. As far as communications division goes, you'll see that, as mentioned, they're about $600,000 under budget this year, mostly related to staffing challenges. There is a decrease in their budget for next year, again, related to presumptions of being able to refill those staffing positions, but we will do our best. Communications saw the same challenges the police department did as far as staffing goes. Fiscal year 22, 23, and this year have been very difficult. We've had multiple retirements. multiple departures, those leaving the profession to take other jobs or transitioning to a part-time type communications officer role. We entered fiscal year -- being short 4. We are currently short 5, but that doesn't mean we didn't hire and didn't try. And so we hired a number of folks, but we did lose 5 through training and/or career changes through the current fiscal year. And so, as I mentioned, we have 5 vacancies out of 20 right now. We did sign the stay agreement related to countywide consolidation this year. That was an incentive offered by the village to our communications operators to thank them for their continued service and to incentivize them to stay through the duration of the consolidation, build-out and consolidation. So I thank you for that support. We do continue, I know Mr. Mutz and Director Gosnell and Nelson have touched on this already, but we are continuing along the CAD-RMS, JMS countywide consolidation project. Think of that as a technology consolidation prior to a physical consolidation that is projected down the road. Everybody's touched on that already, so there's been a lot of work that's been put into that by both our IS and police, fire, and administration. So thank you to everybody who's involved in that. That will include CAD and RMS. As far as training goes, career development, even though we have struggled with staffing, that doesn't mean we've not continued with training. In both the police and the communications profession, ongoing training is extremely important to maintaining certifications and staying on top of the changes to our professions. And so in the last fiscal year, we've covered about 1,000 hours of continuing educational training and development for our comms operators, and about an additional 60 hours of supervision and leadership training for our communications supervisors. Initiatives for next year, again, continuing to hire and tackle those staffing challenges. We do have at least one known retirement within the communications division that we are preparing for. We'll continue to provide training, career development, and succession planning training to them to the best of our ability. That's not only to continue to provide the best services to the Village of Gurnee, its police and fire, but to also our partners, but to prepare the new possible consolidated entity with the best employees that we can provide them should our employees decide to go there. As far as last note on training, I just want to remind everybody that our communication center is internationally accredited, that we continue to maintain the ACE certification, and we're only a handful in the state that currently have that certification. And so a job well done by our communications staff and to Manager Jones for continuing to work on that. Text to 911. We're set up. We're ready for text to 911. We're waiting on the state. We're hopeful that that initiative will roll out here shortly. If not this fiscal year, certainly within the next fiscal year, we hope. And I know there's been questions in the past about that. So as far as I'm aware, the Village of Gurnee, the police department, communications are ready for that. We're just waiting on the state. And then lastly, just more on countywide consolidation. It's been touched on, but we're very heavily involved in that process. And with that being said, I'd like to answer any questions that you may have of me.
Yes, Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, I just curious about the communications team, if they're able to utilize Cortico and that private takedown room or whatever it is.
Yeah, the recovery room.
Thank you.
Yes, so Cortico is available to all of our employees, both civilian and sworn, both active and retired, and their family members. So if they so choose, that is a anonymous and confidential app that they would place on their phone that provides them the resources that's available. And then as far as the wellness room goes, along with the massages and the chiropractor pieces, it's a little bit more difficult for communications because they're running at minimum staffing. Our supervisors are currently working the center just about every day just to cover the shortages. And so whenever it's possible, yes, that would be available to them, but we need to have somebody to replace them at the desk before they can walk out.
Sure, thanks.
It's a good question. It's important. Thank you.
Anybody else to my right, my left? Yes, Trustee Balmes.
Where, do you have the facility within the police station, or are you
putting it someplace else? I mean, are you got the spacing or?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you. Yeah, we are repurposing the the investigations conference room from a investigations conference room to a wellness room. And so the request within the budget is to complete that transition. And that is inside the police department.
And where do we sign up for the massage?
They go quickly. Deputy Chief Gahn posted that in January for the entire year, and those slots were gone within about a few days.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Molly. Thank you for your hard work. All right, John, you got 8 minutes. Can you do it?
That's for Heather and I, or just I? No. So
Please
fire,
give us the full shot, and we'll come back later, so that's, don't rush through it.
okay. Fire department staffing, you see authorized 68, unbudgeted 4, adding 2 new. At this point, we're currently down 7 positions. We're hoping by the end of the year to fill those 7. Ultimately, on the next slide, we'll talk more about it. We'd love to get those other positions filled, but we don't see it occurring next year. Moving on into the actual budget itself, highlights from 2023-24. He's going to be shocked back there, but one of the highlights is getting a deputy chief. He's really taken on quite a few projects. He's done a lot. For the last 4 years, I played the role of deputy chief, fire chief, and fire marshal. With David stepping in that position, first thing he did was tackle the Fire Prevention Bureau. He's kind of jumped in that role of fire marshal. He went out, got his investigator certificates, so he's able to come to every fire. He's part of the county team now, going out and doing fire investigations. He's doing one of the, it sounds, bad, but one of the best parts of the job, we get to play police officer for a few hours. After he investigates, he always brings a box of donuts back with him, so it's great for us. But besides that, David's taken on quite a few projects. Tonight you'll see in the regular meeting, he's looked at updating our entire fire alarm system. This is something that we've just not been able to accomplish, a project this scope, without him being in this position. It's really paid off to have him up in that spot. We're working on transitioning more and more workload to him. He's finally, I think, gotten to the point where he's able to say no to me when I keep handing more projects to him. We're finding a good work balance there, and it's really nice having that position. Thank you again for authorizing that last year. Fire Station 1 project. Wow, did that take a lot of time and effort? We had to get Dave an office to work in first off, so one of the major reasons we did it, and that helped out a lot. But getting the bunk rooms in place with each individual door where the guys have the ability to shut a door, sleep with the ceiling fan without listening to others snore. And then, as we've talked before, if someone comes in with a cough or a cold, this does actually isolate them all. They all have their own air, handlers coming in and out. They share a system, but they're not sharing, the air at night when they're sleeping. This is big. During COVID, they had to sleep with masks on. In the future, we hope that never happens again, where we're having employees at night in an open air bunk room sleeping with masks on. It's not a place to, you talk about a wellness room, when you're trying to get maybe a couple hours of sleep to do with a mask on, it's just unheard of. It really just doesn't work out well. So that project's gone well. We're scheduled our final inspection for this Thursday at 1 o'clock. So we're hoping to get CO, David. David said we're looking good for that, I think. So we're excited about that project, but we appreciate that. The other thing we did last year, we purchased the 6th ambulance. We added the ambulance 1346 to it. That was big. We talked about supply chain issues and the amount of miles. We have an ambulance now approaching 200,000 miles. That's on the road in service. People used to wonder how we used to run 120, 130,000 on these ambulances. I'm still not sure how we're doing 200,000. Pat alluded to it earlier. We have an internal apparatus team that is there all the time, keeping our vehicles up and running. All of our vehicles, are right at what would have been considered past end of life, but we're keeping them up and running. It really works out well for us. Adding this ambulance was big. It allows us to pull other vehicles back out of service and do the maintenance without taking a frontline vehicle off the road. It is, I think you probably saw in a report, We did last year set a new record number of calls for the Gurnee Fire Department. We ran over 8,000 emergency responses. That's just around 22 a day. When the average response takes an hour and a half, by the time you get someone transported to the hospital, you get the vehicle back in service, and you get everyone there, it's really taxing. And with the hospitals in the area continuing to be full, we're actually seeing that time increase. In the summertime, during our busiest time, sometimes the wait times for our crews to deliver a patient can take up to 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, where they're waiting just to get a bed to be able to bring someone in. So it's taxing. It's a lot of work on our folks. They continue to do it, and we appreciate that at our ambulance. On the wellness and safety, one of the things Mayor Hood came to me right away was, what kind of things can we supply the guys to make them feel safer? What can we do to protect them in the service? We added ballistic vests to all of our vehicles. Sometimes I can't believe that we have to have these on ambulances. It's something, and fire engines, I worked hard never to do. However, after working with our police department as a partner, we do lots of training together. We practice going in with what we, rapid deployment teams. We see the purpose having them. The mayor did work hard along with me, and we talked about safety on that, and I appreciate that. Our folks are very happy to have these. They're there for every call. We just put the training in place a couple months ago. We put the new policy in place. There are certain calls we'll direct, you must wear these vests, and it's no choice, the commander. But the nice part is they're there on every call. If someone just feels like they need it for a call for some reason, they put it on. No questions asked. It's part of that mental wellness, just knowing you have that protective thing there to protect you. So we really appreciate that. 24, 25, some of our initiatives. Biggest thing we're struggling with, I mentioned earlier, is recruitment. The fire department put together an internal recruitment team. Deputy Chief Douglas, Battalion Chief Steffens, Lieutenant Perry. These three individuals, it came right out of our strategic plan, said we need to figure out a way to increase our candidate pool. The last two tests, when we've gone out and asked people to come, we've had 8 people show up to take our tests, 8 to 9 people. The 3 of them working with, and I should mention Christine Palmer, Human Resource Director, has been the ex facto expert with this. She keeps them on task when they have questions, they have anything, they always go to her and run things through her, but she's allowed them to run with this. We have, right now, we're interviewing 28 people this time around. And this is due to these three going out, hitting the streets, working on it. We've done some great recruiting, and it's by far right now one of the more diverse groups of people that we're interviewing as well, which was great to see. Not only did they hit the numbers, but we're also seeing a lot of diversity in that recruitment. Hopefully the interviews over the next 2 weeks go successful, and we can get some job offers out there. So we appreciate all Christine's help with that and that internal team. Station 2 project. We mentioned a couple years ago we built Station 3, and we just did Station 1 with the bunk rooms so they aren't sleeping with masks. Well, Station 2 still currently is an open air bunk room. It's got 3/4 walls there, so we don't have that. This year we put dollars in to get the design to get those bunks. We'll meet with the architects, we'll work through the planning stages of it during this budget year, and then we'll be before you as a capital project in the following year. But we're also looking at, that building was built in 1995. We have some challenges up in the front office, some redesign up there. We probably are going to want to do along with the bunks, but that's all. We've got dollars in here to meet with the planners and the architects to start that process. So we're excited about that, and that directly goes to health and safety of the employee. The next item, thermal imaging cameras. This is, again, when we went around to our personnel, this is an area that they really asked for. It's kind of like the ballistic vest. Thermal imaging cameras is a device that we're able to walk into a fire, and it's one of the few times that you can see through smoke. It's nice. It really makes a big difference. When this project started, we have 12 of these cameras. We used to pay $25,000 a camera. We are now able this year to replace all 12 cameras we own for $76,000. When we first started this was technology that came straight out of the Navy, and you were basically buying first-generation technology. after military, and we're the only people purchasing it. Now that this has kind of gone out in hunters and everyone else is using thermal imaging, it's really driven the price down. It's great that we're able to do this, average about $5,000 a camera. It's you know, one of those things we're excited, but this is also one of the things that the personnel is excited about, getting new technology because they've improved them. Now they can see temperatures, they can see other things that help them decide what kind of decisions to make within firefighting. So it's a great improvement for safety reason. Going back to the personnel, the 5th ambulance, our goal this year is to get the 5th ambulance on the road 24/7, 365. This is going to take a lot with the staffing levels we currently have. Being down 7, we're barely maintaining the 4th one a lot. We're forcing people back. We continue to have people working double shifts just to keep that on the road. And we've met it all year, and we'll continue to do that. Our goal by the end of next year is to have that 5th ambulance on the road. With the call volume we have, the amount of mutual aid, which delays some of the response, it's needed. And that's why we've looked at those, adding those personnel. Last year you bought us the 6th ambulance that'll allow us to do this. This will be big for us if we're able to do this. So at that point, I'll open up for questions.
Yes, Trustee O'Brien?
Thank you. Chief, I read in here somewhere, I think that in order for hiring and for diversity, you're going to try to hire paramedics and then train them to be firefighters?
Great question. I was trying to, even though Mayor said don't speed up through, it was one of the things I was going to cover. This is the first time this 28, that hiring committee, working along with Christine, they came up with an idea. Currently, when you wanted to take our test, you had to be a firefighter paramedic to take the application out. We opened that up last year where we said, well, you could be a certified firefighter, but you could be a paramedic student about to finish. We were trying to capture the students before they got hired by someone else, first in line. This year, we opened it up that you could be a nationally registered paramedic anywhere, and we would be willing to send you to the fire academy. This is the first time that we're opening this up. This is similar to what our police department does. We looked at it, and this would mean we would hire someone, swear them in, and we wouldn't see them for 12 weeks back. We would send them straight to the academy. There's a very good academy that we've already went down, looked at. It's in Glenview, so they wouldn't have to stay overnight down there. So we do save some expense there, but we would be able to put this person basically on a 40-hour week, send them to the academy, certify them, and then they would come back. They would already be a paramedic certified, so we don't have to wait. The reason we continue only to look at the firefighter with the 12 weeks, the day you decide to become a paramedic, it's closer to almost a 2-year process. They require you have to become an emergency medical technician, a basic first, then you have to actually go take multiple college class courses prior to even signing up for paramedic class. So we weren't able at this point, we didn't feel like to open it all the way up to paramedic, non-paramedic, but we felt the firefighter was a nice change. It did increase some of our recruitment. As we looked across those 28, we pretty much got 1/3 of each group. Firefighter, paramedic student, paramedic there. So we do have that. It's one of the things as we finish the interviews, the recruitment team and Christine and I will work on slotting how to hire who in what order. That way we can maybe put a cohort together in the next year to send to the first academy and see how that goes for us. But thanks for asking that question.
Yes, Trustee Bowles?
What kind of consequences have you experienced with the Vista and the amount of calls that you had? And are you going to Condell, and has that increased?
So 2 things there. First thing is I received a memo today. Condell got its level 2 trauma status back. It's back up to a full level 2 trauma. The Department of Public Health just sent that out. So we did just receive that notice. We're able to bring level 2 trauma there. We're fortunate in this county, we have a level 1 trauma center, Condell. So this ruling that said Vista could not accept level 2 trauma, it didn't do anything with medical patients. So we were still allowed to bring medical patients there. You just couldn't bring someone who had trauma. Well, having a level 1 trauma center, we brought the majority of trauma patients to Condell because it's the highest level you can find. So it had minimal impact on how we transported people.
And the other question I would have is it a detriment that the fire department has so many calls when you're hiring, do you find that they're actually having to really work a lot? I mean,
I laugh and I
find
look
that.
at Chief Smith. About 10 years ago, you would brag about the number of calls you had, and people lined up because they wanted to see how busy we were here in Gurney as police and fire. Now, we say whether it's generation or whatever it is, yes, we do sometimes see people willing to take another position for a little less money to be slower. Once again, we don't want them working here in Gurney if that's their reason anyway, so they're probably doing us a favor by rejecting it. But we do see some with recruitment, and I know our police department's had the same thing. The busier you are, more you are, it does sometimes drive some people that are looking to work less away.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief, thank you, David.
Good place
Ready?
to break.
Yep.
So
Sorry,
we'll-
Heather.
Yep, we'll
We
break.
have to carry over.
Yep, well, so we'll continue the public hearing to the end of new business.
Was there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by trustee Garner, second by trustee O'Brien. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.